Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I hope you are all happy and healthy, doing the things you love, with those you love to do them with. Guys, it is Wednesday. It is the 10th of December, and we've got some transfer news, views, and clues updates for you. Let's get straight into it. Please do smash the like button, hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for all of your support in the year to date. As always, we appreciate you very much. Hit the notification bell and drop your comment. Let me know your thoughts on this one, which is quite a lot. There's about 7 or 8 different stories to bring to you. The first one, though, isn't about transfers. It's actually about our former chairman, Daniel Levy. I will be bringing in some thoughts as we go through this, by the way, on last night's game, but I'll be doing more of that on a live stream later on. So I was going to do the transfers today, but let's start with this story that apparently there's an audit going to be taking place into Daniel Levy's tenure. This is coming out from the Bloomberg, right? So a financial report, pretty interesting stuff. This is the majority owner of Tottenham Hotspur is conducting an accounting review into former chairman Daniel Levy's long tenure as part owner and custodian, according to people familiar with the matter. The review, led by the Lewis Family Trust, is understood to cover all commercial aspects of the Premier League football club's operation, including how sponsorship agreements were structured. One person said they spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss private information. The decision signals a further deterioration in the relationship between Levy and the ownership group. Levy was instrumental in engineering Tottenham's financial turnaround during his almost 25 years at the top of the club before being controversially removed by the Lewis Family Trust in September. Levy turned Spurs into one of the most valuable clubs in Europe. However, the club had consistently failed to win major trophies, and Levy turned down numerous investment and takeover offers that led to a fallout with the ownership group, according to people familiar with the matter. Whilst there is no indication of any wrongdoing, the review is looking into whether player and commercial contracts and payments were fairly valued. One of the people said, "It's being led by the executive management, supported by legal counsel from Dixon Minto." According to another person, it follows a review earlier this year from US management consultancy firm Gibb River before Levy's exit. Representatives of the Lewis family, Dixon, Minto, Levy, and Tottenham Hotspur all declined to comment. Such reviews might be normal practice after a change of ownership, but in the case of Tottenham, it was the existing owner asserting control, the Lewis Family Trust, via its holding group, ENIC. Up until Levy's exit, the Lewis family remained largely on the periphery. Levy was the Premier League's longest-serving chairman and one of its most successful owners. Under his stewardship, Spurs built a state-of-the-art stadium in London and became one of the sport's coveted assets. However, Levy consistently stymied away any attempt to sell Tottenham during a time when sports valuations were booming. Bloomberg previously reported that investors, including US billionaires and private equity funds, all began discussions to buy a stake at the club, with the end goal being full control. But talks consistently broke down over Levy's high valuation, and because he wanted to remain either as a significant investor or in charge of sporting decisions via a lucrative contract. Spurs struggled last season, yada, yada, yada. It basically goes on to talk about the history of the area, right? So let's just sort of chew through that a little bit here, guys. I think it's pretty interesting stuff. So first and foremost, there is, just putting it out there, no assertion that any wrongdoing is taking place. However, it's looking into the commercial side. So within that, there's a few assumptions you can make. Over 25 years, that the Levy ENIC relationship was essentially Levy was taking care of it all, and the Lewises were essentially sort of stood off, right? They stood back and they let him take care of things. And if the money's coming in and the valuations are going up, then all is good. We know that he got sidelined back in March, April, when Charrington came in to essentially be a fly on the wall as non-executive director initially, then non-executive chairman. And the question marks was why? Like, why is he needed then? And obviously we were speculating at the time, but we were saying, Johnny and I were saying, there's clearly some sort of disconnect between the previous relationship, where it was just let Levy get on with it, to whatever's going on now. And I think a lot of the rumors around the time were saying that Daniel Levy, as this article goes on to suggest, was that he wasn't going to allow investors to come, and he was moving the goalpost, moving the number, moving the needle, whatever. But basically the only way that he was going to approve anything was if he was still able to stay on and be a part of the project. And he would like to stay on as chairman, like to stay on as footballing guy, getting paid a lot of money. Now, remember that the owners haven't taken any dividends out of Tottenham in 25 years. So in terms of how much have they got paid? Well, look, they've certainly taken money out of the football club in small chunks, or large chunks it became by the end. 90 million, I think it was, over the previous 3 or 4 years for property investments, for all of that money to go into buy into machinery and for various assets around Tottenham Hotspur so that they could build those things up, build the flats up. Allegedly, according to all the reports, all of the money has gone back in. It's fed itself. It becomes a self-feeding machine. But the Lewises haven't, they put their money in to buy the company originally, buy the football club originally. They then put in £100 million, what was that, 3 or 4 years ago? They put in another £100 million very recently. But in terms of taking money out, they haven't really. At least according to all reports, there hasn't been any obvious notable way for them, for the people that are at ENIC level, to be able to get paid. Now, Daniel Levy, of course, has paid himself handsomely in terms of bonuses and salary, take-home salaries and probably pensions, all that sort of thing, for a long time. But that hasn't been the case for the Lewis children nor Joe Lewis and the other directors at the ENIC level, which is obviously maybe, and you can understandably, a source of frustration for them, especially if they saw that their potential sales point was going to be the payoff when somebody else came in to invest in Tottenham. And if he was then blocking and essentially curtailing any opportunity for that to happen without the promise that he was going to carry on getting his, you could understand why there were scenarios or why there were rumors that he was, being a source of frustration for ENIC. What I would say is that it also then brings into question why it is that if the current owners, like the Lewis children, etc., if they are frustrated that they didn't get their chance to get theirs when Daniel Levy was in charge, and that is the part and the point in which they got frustrated. Charrington's gone in there, seen what's going on, and has basically turned around like a fly on the wall, almost like a snitch, gone back to his main employers, which were obviously, he's a Bahamas-based, ex-investment banker, etc., and their right-hand man for the Lewis family. He's gone back and said, look, yeah, we need to get rid of Daniel Levy because in his mind, he's cop blocking, right? He's cop blocking our ability to move forward, all those things. The truth of that, we don't know. Obviously, the truth of that, even the Lewises don't know, but there's enough smoke for them to now inject a second audit. So it says that the first audit took place last year, wasn't it, with under that Gibb, the lawyers. Oh, where's the word here? Can't find it. So Dixon Minto is the new guys that are taking care of this audit, but Gibb River was the previous one earlier this year. So Gibb River started their audit at around the same time as Charrington came in and Vinay came in. And so you can see there is a level and an element of distrust. Now, the Levy family and the Lewis family go back decades, right? So there's a lot of kind of blood, sweat and tears between the two families. But at the end of the day, it's business, and business doesn't become personal. It just becomes quite kind of cold and calculating. And obviously some of the feedback, I would imagine, I'm inferring from this, that some of the feedback that has got back to the Lewises, either from the Gibb River audit, from Charrington and Vinay themselves, looking into things, looking into the detail around some of the deals, how much, could we have got more? Should we have got more? How much are you taking? Don't forget, there's also rumors out there that even in the stadium rebuild that was supposed to be about 500 million that became $1 billion, there was lots of unnecessary costs that were added to the final bill. And there's even rumors, and again, allegedly, I'm not saying this in a matter-of-fact way at all, but there's rumors knocking around in certain circles that there was a lot of kind of, contracts that were given to certain firms that then were kind of maybe paid back on the flip side. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% sure that I've heard that the company that was used to do certain contracts within the stadium also got the contract to do either the refurb or the extension or the building of Levy's house in the Bahamas or something like that. Again, forgive me if that's not entirely accurate, but that's just the rumors and my memory serving me maybe incorrectly or correctly. But I'm sure there was some smoke there as well. And so maybe there's just more and more feelings from the Lewis side that this was a lot about Daniel Levy getting his and not a lot about the Lewises getting theirs, which is fine. Obviously, it's not fine, but obviously that's one part of the conversation here. The other part of the conversation is that if the Lewises wanted out, or they wanted to get a slice of theirs from a new investment, and they were turned down, rejected because of Daniel Levy's demands to be included in in the future running of the business, then it begs the question, why is it that since he's gone, there has been 3 new expressions of interest? One from the DJ, NASA DJ bro, the tech guy, Brooke Eric. One from, obviously, Amanda Staveley and her consortium. And the third from Dr. Roger Kennedy and the guys who were the founders of Triller, and the kind of the social media app that once upon a time was trying to be like a clone of Musical.ly before Musical.ly became TikTok, and then latterly became more into kind of like real fringe sports like bare knuckle fighting and all that kind of stuff. Not saying that any of them necessarily would have been good fits, but if they all put in expressions of interest, now, of course, there's a lot of tire kicking. We've heard from Simon Jordan and we've heard from Stefan Borson with regards their history within takeovers and footballing ownership, that you do get a hell of a lot of tire kickers, but because of the rules around disclosures, that you have to, give everybody the kind of the credibility that the expression of interest requires, even though a lot of them, most of them, are just nosy and just time wasters. But at the end of the day, if part of this investigation, on the one hand, suggests that they're frustrated, again, in my interpretation, they were frustrated with the way it all panned out when they were looking for investment, when they were looking for potentially relationships, partners that could eventually become full takeovers, and that Daniel Levy cop-blocked them. If they were frustrated with that, then why has his absence been met with additional rejections of any potential interest after he's gone? If their end goal is to get a slice of the pie before they run out of time and they're, on their personal clocks, why immediately reject out of hand, out of favor, any particular investment? Because that would have been the source for them and the access point, the route in which they could have, taken a £500 million investment, taken 200 million quid of it out for themselves, or whatever, or however they want to do it, or put that money into the various projects that are still yet to be built. I think phase 3 of the Northumberland Park development plan? They still have to build a hotel within the next 2 years for the Euros, I believe. They still have, I think they have 2 residential blocks initially, but it's going to eventuate to 4 residential blocks. They have an extreme sports center with like a deep dive swimming pool and a rock climbing unit or something in there, squidged in between the hotel and the residential blocks. They also have the redevelopment of the park, the other side of town, which some say is going to be used for various things. There's options and arguments as well around an NFL training center to be able to continue and nurture that relationship with the NFL franchise for an eventual, for an international franchise team to come to London, which would be the obvious first step in their pursuit of globalizing that sport. And they also have to have the women's stadium and the women's training ground. All those things need to be. So a hell of a lot of interest, a hell of a lot of intentions to carry this project on, but that's very capital intensive. And the initial purpose, as far as we were told from Daniel Levy years ago, was we are seeking to extend the equity base, which is just code word for we need money that we're not prepared to put into the projects. And yet every time that's happened since Daniel Levy's departure, though, they have been rejected out of hand as well. So there's 2 narratives here. One is a hell of a lot of suspicion, although again, no assertion that there's any wrongdoing, but just an audit into what exactly happened. How did it happen? These people obviously are going to have the full gamut to go and speak to those potential parties and say, listen, what was the conversation like? What is it that was asked for? What did you offer? Maybe we're not getting told all of the information that actually transpired. That's definitely the reason why Charrington was brought in. Did the Gibb River audit go deep enough? Maybe not. That's why they're coming back into all commercial deals, by the way. Maybe they're also looking into why it was that the stadium naming rights has failed to materialize. I've always said to you guys that there has been there's a benefit. It's a very difficult to quantify value in having just the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as the stadium name, but because of all of the reach it gets, Beyonce's and rugby and NFL and all of the different concerts and the go-karting and the NFL game on Electronic Arts and the football game, all of the things where you're going to see the name Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, there will be some legacy, like I say, lifetime value of a new customer that will become a Tottenham fan because of their first experience with Tottenham not being about football necessarily and being just drawn into the occasion, brought to the stadium, blown away by the experience, then later falling in love with football and then choosing Tottenham as a consequence. And then if they become lifelong fans, their families, their kids do all that stuff. So there's a hell of a lot of value, although very difficult to quantify, in just keeping it the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. At least until the name Tottenham Hotspur Stadium ceases to be referred to as the best stadium in the world, which it currently is and has been for the last 4 or 5 years. But there's lots of new stadiums that are being built. Real Madrid have just got theirs, which is now probably taking that sort of nomenclature, the best stadium in the world. Barcelona's is about to be, unveiled soon whenever they finish doing theirs. Obviously, the Atletico Madrid have got a new stadium naming rights partner with Spotify. And was it Spotify or was it one of the investment banks? I forget. But Newcastle United as well. Everton, there's the new stadiums are getting built, and that first of all, the shine will have come off the stadium. It won't always be known as the best stadium in the world. The second thing is that once you get new stadiums that have copied the template of what Tottenham did, using it in multi-purpose, building it for multi-purpose arena purposes, then multi-sport, multi-event purposes, then obviously you have more competition for some of the things that right now Tottenham Hotspur don't have too much competition for, like boxing, etc. And so the fact that we have sort of maybe soaked up as much as the juice that squeeze was able to offer, you think that now would be the time to move into a stadium naming rights. But of course, brands are going to be aware of that as well, that it would have been better to have that branding name, whoever, the Googleplex or the Google Arena, the Amazon Arena, whatever, any of those types of things. It would have been better to have had that at the start of that journey, not at the midway point of its of its utility. And so Daniel Levy turning down deals for £20 million a year or £18 million a year because he thought it was worth £25 million a year and we didn't get it. And how much money have we essentially given up? £150 million by his own calculations. But if the correct valuation was more like 15 and he didn't do it, then we've given up, over like close to 100 million quid or whatever over the last 6 years in revenue that we could have gone elsewhere. Again, there's the argument of like the kind of cost benefit analysis, the opportunity cost of having the stadium naming rights given to somebody else where they get the brand value, or keeping it Tottenham Hotspur. Who knows? It's impossible to quantify and qualify. But the reality is that will certainly be part of the audit as well, right? Like why couldn't we get the deal done? Was it simply because we were being too greedy? Daniel Levy trying to negotiate too hard and basically driving people away. Missed opportunities potentially. This doesn't look good, guys. It doesn't look good. It doesn't matter. Like Daniel Levy's not a part of Tottenham Hotspur as far as we know anymore. He's obviously still a shareholder. We still don't know the clarification on whether that £100 million that was injected into the club from ENIC. Remember, he is a third owner of ENIC. And so technically, the sources of funding that should be coming from ENIC into the football club, a third of which should come from Daniel Levy's pockets, but he doesn't have the liquidity to do that sort of thing. So the £100 million that was put in a few years ago likely didn't come from his pockets, but he continued to take salaries and bonuses. And I'm sure that the £100 million that's just come in also didn't come from him. That's probably why it came through a different fund or a different bank account or whatever. It looks like the relationship is pretty. I don't know. It's being questioned, and I think that maybe some of these audits are probably, looking to inquire what opportunities we had, what ones were right to walk away from, which ones were wrong to haggle so hard, and were his valuations, were his decisions as good as the PR around Daniel Levy's commercial identity represents. And it'll be really interesting. We won't see the fallout from it, obviously, but hopefully we'll be able to kind of garner some of the truth as the story unfolds from places like Bloomberg, places like the Times and the Telegraph. It will be fascinating to see. And maybe Daniel Levy will end up looking like, I guess his current reputation for most is someone, or for a lot of people, is someone that was terrible at the football side, fantastic at the business side. I personally don't think he was particularly terrible at the football side. And I think he's very good at the commercial side. But I think what's weird is that the people that will always Levy out, most of them, through gritted teeth, will probably over-accentuate his value in the commercial side to look balanced, in an effort to look balanced while saying he was absolutely astonishingly bad at the football side. I think the truth is somewhere closer. I don't think he was as good as some people suggest. on the business and the negotiating style, that whole kind of, oh, he's a master negotiator. No, he isn't. Anyone can just say no to everything apart from, like, I'm saying no to whatever you want. You're only going to say yes to mine, and that's it. Otherwise, there's no deal, and just wait people out. You know, I don't think that's a fantastic way of negotiating. I've said this to you 1,000 times, especially when in football, you only have a relatively small number of counterparties in which you can do business. So if you burn bridges along the way, it makes it very difficult to continue to foster good relations in the future. But I don't think he was as bad as everyone says he was at the footballing side either. I think he hired good people. They just made mistakes. Either way, that's irrelevant. To us, it's probably irrelevant, but it will be fascinating to see how this story plays out in the future, and whether or not we will end up now on the back of this audit, maybe expediting deals to get contracts done at lower valuations, because possibly there's this idea of saying, look, we need more money. It can't always come from ENIC, even though it hasn't always come from ENIC. Very rarely has it come from ENIC. And that maybe Daniel Levy's greed and his viewpoint on valuations was just always the stumbling block. It seems like there's an audit there for a reason. And I would imagine that we will end up settling for sort of lower deals in order to get some money coming in. But those things to me can be problematic as well. Obviously, a deal is better than no deal, as long as you're not tying yourself down to ridiculous long-term contracts at horrendous disadvantageous price points, like we did with the Nike shirt deal. We're only a little bit of the way through a very long contract where we're not earning anything like some of the other clubs around us are doing from their deals. And again, that will probably be under the scrutiny of the audit as well. Guys, I've been going for 22 minutes, so apologies for getting your hopes up about transfer news, views, and clues. What I'll do is I'll do a separate video for that. And this one, let me know your thoughts. Daniel Levy, under the scrutiny and the spotlight again. Has he left Tottenham? What's going to happen if this doesn't come out well? And it doesn't look like the relationship is very trusting at the moment. Are Tottenham going to end up buying, or is ENIC going to end up buying Daniel Levy out and then allowing that money to be, that stake to be the precursor to somebody else coming in, maybe a Qatar, maybe a Saudi, maybe Stavely, maybe whoever. But again, just to finalize, for me, there's two different stories here. One of them is, was it him that was cop blocking us all the time? And is that, you know, so maybe we need to go back and try and mend those bridges. The other is, if that was the case, then, and you really want money and you were pissed off that you thought that he was getting his and you weren't getting yours, then why did you also flat out reject all of the deals that you could have done, or you could have at least inquired and sort of got conversations with those three expressions of interest in the last 90 days? It doesn't really make sense. Nothing ever does, really, or nothing really does. Nothing very often does. That's the phrase I'm looking for in the world of Tottenham. But anyway, guys, we'll leave it there. Like, subscribe, and comment. And do me a favor, please also check us out on Spotify, where you can obviously watch this back and listen to it on Apple Pods and all that stuff. Links in the description, or just search for Spurs Talk Show. Give us a follow and a rating. Appreciate you all. Have a good day. Bye.